One of my favorite paintings is of Judges. I think it's 28.
Okay.
And all the people arose as one man.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Remember that? You know this one?
Yeah.
I have some specific questions about that painting, but I'm just interested in your initial general thoughts about that specific painting.
Yeah, I think it was just kind of like what am I going to do with this passage kind of thing? And then that's an example of one that is like more of a literal interpretation of like the text, like everyone emerging as this one man.
That seems quite mystical, the idea of there being the many in the one. There's something significant going on there in terms of the invitation to participate. As you're creating the project, you're perhaps relating with the various characters, and then you are in the paintings to some extent too.
Yeah, all these characters are kind of like just sprinkled throughout on their own. Like it's a very kind of individualist, like reflective of the individual in the world, because that's like so much of what is focused on in our society. Instead of being like a group that can achieve things together and like protect each other, it's like such a dog-eat-dog sort of like the stronger you are as an individual, the more success you'll have, and you'll get your way and everything like that. So like in that sense, like the project was about having these like individual paintings with these individual people doing their individual things, and having when they're all like put together and bound in this book, it'll like take on this life of its own that I'd have no like way of predicting.
Yeah.
So it's just like, I guess in that sense, like all these individuals coming together into a much bigger like collective individual in this book.
Yeah, there's a component of discovering the universal within the particular, and perhaps only within the particular.
Yeah, that resonates with me definitely.
Yeah, and it's there in the it's captured. It's
cool.
It does evoke that. The book does evoke that.
Great.
Music also seems so. Music and food. Both are quite prominent throughout.
Yeah.
I love the closing painting in 2 Samuel. And David and all the house of Israel played before the Lord on all manner of instruments. So then there's a keyboard. It's kind of like a rock performance. Are the paintings that reference music, and there's a few of them, suggesting anything about music as an art form, and perhaps some relationship between music and this good orderly direction and flow?
Yeah, music. Well, it played a big part in it was on so many of the pages itself. Like I had to like deal with music in some way, and like it's self-referential in that like before this project played a lot of music pretty like heavily for probably like 5 years. It was like one of my like more main outlets besides like some painting and stuff. But
what kind of style?
I kind of started off more like finger-picky, kind of like blues type of thing, but then it like that was only because it was like what I like to play, like some Mississippi John Hurt type of thing. But then like from there it just got like electric guitar and like really weird and not at all referencing that, and just kind of like experimental, but kind of a little bluesy still, and like it's hard to explain. It's kind of like these paintings if they were music, sort of. People have told me that the feel and the themes like continue between my forms of expression. So
very synesthetic.
Maybe, yeah. So yeah, and it's fun to paint music scenes, I guess. So
in this particular painting, it's almost like a depiction of entering into the good orderly direction of flow, and music is facilitating or fostering that in that moment.
Yeah, definitely. Yep, makes sense.
Let's turn our attention to the very first painting for Genesis 1.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that kind of preceded the project?
Mm-hmm.
But then it ended up kind of steering the project too?
Yes, definitely.
Can you explain how?
Yeah, that's some of that good orderly direction right there, because yeah, it was like just a painting that I made in like this series of unrelated paintings, like that weren't even related to each other. They were just like a mishmash of just like whatever I felt like painting. But it was like really hard to make those paintings because I was like not feeling particularly inspired, and it was like hard to get each one of them, hard to make them. And then, but then like when I realized I was going to be doing this project, and then like I read the passage about God having or giving man dominion over all the
fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth on the earth.
Yeah, and then it was just like, well, like what then is done with that dominion, and like what is your relationship then to the animals, and like what have you chosen to do with this order, you know, like, and then like fast forward 3 millennia or whatever to like the rodeo type of relationship with animals, where it's like sport and game mixed in with like livestock for eating, and like this like kind of very like morally confusing relationship to all the wild beasts, using them for like our entertainment and stuff. And then but like, yeah, I guess there's also the necessity to sometimes catch a calf if you're like a shepherd type of person. But then in our like in America, you know, like the rodeo is just kind of fascinating to think about. And then yeah, so then that was like the picture that kind of steered a lot of the direction towards especially the first 3 books of the cowboy theme, just kind of like this dusty feel.
In Genesis 21:8, the great feast, Abraham's making a great feast. There's lots of hamburgers.
Oh yeah, and spaghetti.
For example. And spaghetti.
Spaghetti.
Yeah. And and so let's keep on focusing on the food and ethics overlap, because I feel that this first painting again, it's an entry point for the estranged child you. If you have an ethical commitment, as you do, to non-violence, and that applying to that animals that man is given dominion over, it seems like that seems to be an entry point that you discovered to be yourself and to and this commitment to non-violence, this concern that you as a human have about how the humans treat the animals, it's invited by that very first verse in Genesis, where there's a focus on being fruitful and multiplying, replenishing the earth and subduing it. Could you expand a little bit more on like just your personal kind of ethos, non-violence, concern about how the humans treat the animals, and kind of discovering the way into this project?
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, it's more of like sort of as a bystander than I'm not like putting in exactly my own morals, because like I've been like vegetarian off and on, and like as of like a couple days ago even have eaten some meat, you know. So it's not like I'm not like trying to like be above how we treat animals, you know, like on the larger American scale, but just more of just like a sort of like fly on the wall observer of what's going on, and like in that respect, kind of like I have a sense of how it's could be vastly improved to like take away that relationship with animals, and how much waste it produces and how inhumane it is to all the animals. Like I understand the horrible impact of agriculture that it takes to produce the animals and like all of that stuff. So it's just kind of like reflective of that without being like, I don't do that. Like even though I don't do much of it, I'm not like saying that.
So,
yeah.
Rather than looking down upon and judging other humans, it seems more like you're recognizing the energy in this passage here of an invitation to step into greater responsibility.
Yeah, I could see that.
And that's the focus on what is being eaten keeps on recurring, obviously in the Old Testament and especially in the passages that your paintings draw attention to.
Yeah.
So a couple more that exhibit that.
Yes.
This one from Leviticus, where it's like a student is being educated about which animals it's okay to eat. And then a second painting here in Deuteronomy 14:20, where there's a focus on the clean fowls you may eat, and so the birds are being cleansed, they're being cleaned. What kind of draws you to those passages that relate to cleanliness, purification, and in relation to what we're eating?
Yeah, I think, well, part of that was just because like those pages early on were like flooded with kind of direction about how to like prepare and what foods to eat and what not to eat. So like part of it was just like unavoidable with like what topics were being discussed, and then just like I guess what seemed like it would produce an interesting painting. Food, it's a big subject in the book as a whole, so that's why it kept working within the food realm.
There's another creator of spiritual practices, Pseudo Dionysus, and for that historic individual, there are 3 stages of contemplation. We're contemplating a Bible passage, and the first is catharsis or purification, and the second is illumination, and the third, we're moving towards an indwelling of God, like union. There. So again, a movement towards good orderly direction or flow, the heart becoming more active, makes me think of kind of heart-brain coherence. But it's interesting that there's this focus on purification and cleansing as like the first stage there, and it's coming up in the paintings with the cleaning of these fowls. And there's a number of other paintings where you're picking up on passages related to cleanliness. And there's this green water in this one painting, and there's a sense, as the humans are addressed and told to be clean, there's a strong sense of the humans like in this green water feeling shame.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any further reflections on? Do you know the painting that I'm?
I think so.
They're
like in a little bathtub and some suits and holding like trophies and stuff. Probably.
Yeah. So you have this concern about looking down on other humans, or it's not something that you're in the habit of doing. It's not something that you catch yourself in the act of doing it and be more self-responsible and not do that so much. Mm-hmm. And here we have humans. Feeling that they are not clean, feeling that they are not pure, and feeling ashamed because of that. And there's quite a few paintings I feel where shame is being kind of depicted in that way. Can you expand on that anymore?
Yeah, I feel like those are just like interesting passages to read about like people going astray and then like coming to with like God being upset at them, and then just like just dissecting what that means to have like gone astray, and like what could have led them, and like what
Thinking about sin as just kind of missing the mark. That's, I think, one translation of what sin is.
Right.
Missing the mark, and then being aware of having missed the mark.
Yeah.
And obviously, then shame can arrive.
Yeah.
Other transformative things can occur depending on what happens next.
For
I
sure,
think there are various paintings that are aware of what might happen and next, and how universal those kinds of moments are.
Yeah.
Where we're aware of having missed the mark.
For sure.
And what now?
Yeah.
And how can we show up in a way where that awareness is kind of harnessed and channeled in a good, orderly direction?
Yeah.
As opposed to succumbing to shame.
Right. Yeah. It's just like a, very just common human feeling to, like, especially in the process of like going from a child to an adult, like your like internal like pressures that make you want to do certain things, and then just like society or like what you're told God is like frowning on or whatever, and then having to assess and like redirect based on like what's okay with you, kind of thing.
Yeah. Not only is the book, right from the get-go with that first painting, drawing attention to this call to self-responsibility. Like, humans are in the position of being in dominion over other aspects of nature, and there's a call to kind of live up to that.
Yeah.
I just think that as we kind of near the end of our journey through the book, I'd like to kind of home in on your description of your journey creating the book as having been very transformative, serious, and seriously long. Again, 7 years. It's lots of paintings.
Yeah.
And you experienced transformation, and you experienced the shift into greater responsibility, the very thing that's referred to
I guess
in that opening passage.
Yeah.
Do you have any further thoughts on how the discipline and the practice of your commitment to this particular creative project kind of naturally facilitated growth, and as an alternative to the falling into shame, like we haven't lived up to, we're not living up to, we're missing the mark. We're not living up to the promise. Do you have any final thoughts on how your experience of commitment to this creative endeavor naturally led to an experience of growth, kind of maturing, that's not just random growth, but evolution?
I suppose like that much time being, like it was like something like 3,000 or 3,500 hours on like this, on these paintings alone, and it like it's just like a lot of time to be alone with like your thoughts and like whatever media I was consuming, and then like the like bringing in like my daily experiences that are happening, that are just bringing them like into this project as I'm like, working and
finding scope to integrate it all. It seemed natural to invite all of that in.
I guess it kind of makes me appreciate just like just the luxury of having time. I like really want to like be a part of the movement out of this mess that like humanity's gotten themselves in, and now I'm just like, well, like my time has to go into like promoting this and being like making all these like 7 years matter, like getting out into the world and like hopefully find a way for that to fund my life. Yeah, just like emerging from being like an individual in a basement working on these paintings to like something way more collective and like just like intentional and like bigger than myself, because it's just like yeah, having been spent like all those hours were like spent by myself, like in a dark basement, like just poorly lit. And yeah, it feels like now there's like this pressure, like what do I do with that investment of time, like how can I use that to steer like what's next sort of thing. And like one really pivotal painting was like Lamentations 2:10 it was, and like it's like of this beached whale that's like washed up on this beach. It's like, and then there's like all these people still like in their bathing suits with like party, like pool party kind of thing, like a water slide and like all these like pool toys. Yeah. So and they're like they're all again like in shame, like hanging their heads in shame, like they're just trying to keep on going, even though there's this like beached whale that's like taking away the steam in the room, you know, just like it's just and that was sort of like just self-reflective of like all of this time that I'm putting into this project, when like there's that proverbial like beached whale on like all of our doorsteps, about just like the impending doom that we've like brought ourselves to, you know. And yeah, like in the middle of a pandemic, multiple pandemics of like various sorts, you know. And so yeah, that was kind of like a pivotal piece, because I was like, should I even like continue this, or should I redirect my energy elsewhere that would have like a greater impact on like what is like what we should be doing to like salvage all the injustices everywhere.
But you did remain committed to the practice that you had begun.
Right.
And it seems to me like, you were talking about having kind of emerged from completing this process, perhaps with new commitments, a new sense of responsibility. I think one way in which that manifests is through your creative ideas about how to honor your creative projects. So like the door-to-door salesman component. Could you, as we kind of wrap up, say a little bit more about where you're at the moment, how the creativity, you're still kind of harnessing your creativity at this sharing stage?
Yeah, I guess I'm trying to do things like this and like figure out how to express what this project is and what it meant to me, because like a lot of during the process it was just like more like I was saying earlier, just based on feelings sort of. So now like the next step is like figuring out what this really means, like how it can get into the world and like what that can do. And then I want to like sell it door to door, which like probably, I mean, I wanted to sell a lot of copies, but like that way, but like knowing where people are at, like partially pandemic, partially just like not trusting anyone coming to your door trying to sell you something. Like it's such a different time than it was in like the 60s or 50s, when that was like a form of communication almost, like just showing up and people would be like, oh, what's this guy doing here, you know? And like, I'll
you
talk
have the
to you.
intention of wearing a suit from the 60s. As you almost like as a performance art piece, which is also a genuine endeavor to actually sell the book.
Definitely want to sell them that way, and like hopefully just like get my foot in the door with some people. Like if it works out, then there'd be like a job, you know, for a little while, like on top of the performance art piece. But then also I've got an idea to like make like a radio drama style podcast about it, where part of it is like actual conversations I'm having with the people on their doorsteps, with like a hidden microphone, which is legal. I've researched it, and it's not a video; it's just audio. It's there. Everyone will be anonymous, but there'll be like my efforts as a salesman, like interwoven with like some other recurring characters. I just have like a vague outline in my head right now. I haven't like given myself the time to, or had the time to really dig into what form this is going to take. But I feel like there's like a lot of potential in that that setting, like having the door-to-door.
There is. The podcast would be about human connection, the presence and the absence of it.
Yep.
You would be placing yourself within the narrative in a new kind of exciting, powerful way. And
there's even a couple self-referencing, like door-to-door salesman scenes, and I've painted 2 like door-to-door salesman scenes in the Old Testament itself, so kind of painted myself into it in that way too.
you'll be arising as one salesman
Yeah.
on behalf of all of the paintings, all of the stories.
Yeah.
I think there's something really interesting going on there. Please, as you're making the podcast, please reach out if you'd like some assistance with it.
Yeah.
I love the themes. I think there's so much overlap between what the themes of that podcast will be and the themes in the Old Testament, certainly the themes in your paintings. And there's just enough conscious intention there, and then a whole bunch of feeling and subconscious, like following the lead of the subconscious and getting into the good orderly direction of flow.
Well, I'll need all the help that I can get, so I'll definitely call on you. Simon. I'll be like,
we're connected now.
Yeah, for sure.
Human connection.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
But how exciting. Yeah, I love this. And the themes we've been talking about are very much recurring themes in the first Back to the City book, Her Hummingbird Heart. It's about harnessing creativity with Sarah Morris, Julia Cameron, Elizabeth Gilbert, Anne Lamott, and Brené Brown.
Okay.
Are you familiar with any of those?
I've heard Brené Brown before, and I think I've heard a couple of the other ones too.
Brené Brown is an expert, a sociologist who researches shame.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've definitely heard of her for sure, and I'm familiar.
And a lot of what we've been discussing today regarding awareness of missing the mark and alternatives to the self-abnegation that could follow from that, and the connection between that and the violence.
Yeah.
The fact that you've managed to illustrate the Old Testament with so few depictions of violence and without feeding shame, but rather with a focus on integration, owning these different components of the story, recognizing that you belong in the story, and then now kind of transforming into the door-to-door salesman character who will honor that work, and not just your work, but the work of the humans, because we're pretty lovable at the end of the day.
Yeah.
We look at ourselves in a certain light.
You're so good at making all these connections. Like, yeah, I can't wait to hear more of your thoughts about like these connections and what this project that I don't know what it means.
I want to help you with the podcast.
Thank you so much.
We'll do that.
Yes.
And then we can have a very meta part 2.
Yes.
Where you interview me about our podcast.
That would be awesome. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Simon. This was like, you put me at ease. I'm not much of a talker, so thank you for putting so much of your soul into like generating the questions and being super present.
You're welcome.
This was awesome.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it too. We're connected.
You're connected.
Yeah. We're at ease, we belong. It's all relative, but we hit some marks.
Yeah, and I want to see your book when it comes out. That's really exciting.
Yeah, watch this space. If you viewers would also like the first access to the first Back to the City book, keep watching this space. I'll have a physical copy that I'll be holding before too long. And in the meantime, there'll be an audiobook and an ebook. This has been a lovely journey. I'm Simon Calder. Back to the City will be back very soon, just ahead of the Back to the City book. This is, of course, Samuel Robertson. And one last time, how can people access your book if you don't happen to show up at their door in salesman mode.
Right. I wouldn't bank on that because there's like 9 billion people
A lot of
in the
doors.
world. So, but yes, so 1111press.com/Old Testament. That's the publisher. They're so great. Check their other work out too because they're awesome. 1111press.com/Old Testament.
Yeah, and that's how you can pre-order a copy. And then, as it says on this title page, the preparations for printing by 1111 Press are underway, ready for the year 2022.
June.
June 2022. So, and then there'll be a podcast, which may well involve some help from me.
Yes, that'd be
All right.
awesome. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much for joining us today. We will be back.
Thank you. Basketball.